What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. It's almost the end of the week, and I'm ready for it. Uh, Today, I'm going to be talking about essentially my journey into vending, into reselling, into the Pokemon hobby as a means to make a little money on the side, stuff like that. How I started, how you could start, any lessons I've learned, all that sort of good stuff. Um, Before we get into that, though, this weekend, Sunday, the 14th, see me in Berlin, Connecticut at Hard Hitting Card Shows, the Truck Bar Show. I'm really looking forward to it. First time doing that show. Um, I just picked up a big lot of vintage, a lot of it really clean stuff, a lot of it Japanese, some English too. But my vintage binder is absolutely jam-packed. So if you're looking for vintage, come by my table. Also, if you're looking for Mega Dream, or either of the mega sets in Japanese, any of the mega sets in Japanese, uh, come by. I got it all. And competitive pricing, all that. So come see me. And really looking forward to the show. Got a really great inventory. And next weekend, back at the Pokemon Outlet in Lee, Mass. 2-day show, Saturday, Sunday. I'm sure I'm going to have all that stuff there too. So hope to see you guys at one of the upcoming shows the next couple weeks. All right. Well, back in early 2025, so beginning of this year, I had just moved down to Panama City, Florida with my wife. We moved at the start of December, literally this time last year. I started a job down there, and I think at the end of my second week, which this has never happened to me before, the end of my second week, they let me go. Especially in the trades, never happened to me before. I'm not really going to get into all why or anything, or why I would speculate, because I didn't even really have much of a conversation with the guy. Pretty much it was just like I wasn't fitting in with their culture, which in my opinion was very slacking oriented. Very much put in your hours, stretch out the job. We're getting paid by the hour. It wasn't really the type of thing that I look for in a work environment. And whatever, it is what it is. Didn't work out. Long story short, didn't work out. So I'm sitting in this new place at a new house, stressing these new bills in addition to my old bills, because I still had my house up in Massachusetts, and saying, how am I need to make some money here pretty quick. This is a problem. And so I looked around at what I had, and one of the things I had was a decent sized Pokemon collection. Now, decent sized, that's obviously a relative term. I would say it was late January when I started posting on Facebook Marketplace that I was selling Pokemon cards. Mid to late January. And at that time, my collection consisted of 0 slabs, 10 or 15 various set ETBs. Scarlet Violet, and Sword and Shield. And then I had one binder of cards that was $3 to $100 probably. I would say the grand total value of my Pokemon collection in January was $3,000 to $4,000. Now, also at that time, when I posted, and when within a week or two, I realized pretty quickly, oh, this is in really high demand. Oh, people are really buying these. In that time frame, I also had a few $1,000s in cash liquid cash that I could move around, cash that I could speculate with on a short-term basis for purposes of flipping products. So, like I said, first few weeks of my marketplace journey was also the time when Prismatic Evolutions came out. And during that time, I bought almost all from Facebook Marketplace. There was a little bit of, I picked up a couple, maybe a total of 10 ETBs at retail that I found because I wasn't working. And so I did pick up some ETBs at retail, but I also picked up ETBs that I found 2 to 4 weeks after release where people, they got them at retail and they were willing to sell them at, say, 70% of market price. So I think at the time around release and a little bit after, you'd get them at retail for $60 after tax. People would buy them for, I was buying them off Facebook Marketplace people for $80 to $90. And then market prices at the time were fluctuating between $140 and $120. So I threw some of my cash at that. And after being able to flip through those really quickly, and after starting to dip my hands into buying, selling, trading at percentages, I realized, oh, this stuff moves. There's super high demand. And, pretty quickly, all that stock on the shelves, not pretty quickly, within 1 day or 2 days of when they would drop, all that stock on shelves dried up. All those people selling that were willing to just take $20 per ETB on top of what they paid at retail dried up. All that gone. So, there was very high demand, very low supply, and that was pretty obvious pretty quick. Now, how I got my original inventory, my binder, my ETBs, pretty much was during Crown Zenith era up to 151 release. In between then and after 151 release. Through places like card shops, because I came from Magic, so I was in card shops a lot already. Through places like eBay, and then upon discovering Whatnot, I just started to really like the art style that I saw coming out of new Pokemon releases, especially like trainer gallery cards, the illustration rares, special illustration rares, all that stuff. I had slowly been accumulating cards and a little bit of sealed here and there, just as a means of fun building up a collection. I was already into collecting from Magic, but I had started to move away from Magic because, as I've talked about before, and probably I'll talk about in another video more in depth eventually, I moved away from Magic because I just thought that Wizards or Hasbro was not operating the company and the TCG with collectors in mind at all. So I'd moved away from putting my money into Magic, and I started to really like Pokemon cards again. I have the exact same story as everybody else. Super into Pokemon when I was a kid, played the games, collected the cards, traded them with my friends on the playground. Lost my collection at some point or another, and didn't get back into it until probably 5 years ago at all. And then, especially when Whatnot came around, because before I was just kind of picking up sealed product once in a while. Oh, I'll buy an ETB. Oh, that's a new set. Ooh, cool. I'll get another ETB, whatever. And I would just hold them. I ripped a few of them, but I would hold at least half of what I bought. I'd rip some stuff, hold half of what I bought. But when I got introduced to Whatnot, that's when I really noticed that, these illustration rares and these trainer gallery cards are $1 a piece, or sometimes you could get them 2 for $1 on Whatnot pretty easily. I just immediately was like, oh, those are underpriced. I don't know, something in my head clicked, and the low price point was low risk enough for me at the time that I said, this is worth trying. So slowly I accumulated stuff, and that happened for a few years, and I'd go through waves of I'm on Whatnot this week, I bought 20 or 30 cards or whatever, and then I might take a couple weeks off or whatever. So it came in waves. No real goals or anything, just kind of slowly accumulating it, because I've always kind of been a collector and always been looking for different investment opportunities, and so I was just doing that for fun, and so when now fast forward and I'm maybe a month into Facebook Marketplace sales, and I'm kind of feeling my way through different ways to buy stuff under market price, figuring out what people want and at what prices they're willing to pay for it, and kind of dipping my toes into all the vendor POV content. And I'd always been watching because of Magic collecting and sealed product collecting and investing, whatever you want to call it. I'd been watching Alpha Investments, Rudy from Alpha Investments, for years at that point. And he doesn't focus on the vending business model at all, not even close. He's just buy, hold, trickle off some as a means to buy more to hold. But I started watching these vendor POV videos, the Bulbasaur, some other guys, Jar Chomp I think came later, but it was mostly the Bulbasaur to begin with, honestly, just because at that point he was the only one really putting out high level content in that space, in my opinion, that I came across. At least I don't want to say nobody else was doing it, but that's what came across my feed. And if you've ever been on Facebook Marketplace, good things can happen on Facebook Marketplace. However, it's a grind. People are often rude. And even if you're not sourcing a majority of your product from store shelves, or even if you're not sourcing any of your product from store shelves, which is the case for me nowadays, people do assume you are one of these people that goes to Costco and clears off the shelf or whatever. And they'll call you scalpers. They'll say really terrible things to you. And that's fine, whatever. I hope they're better. That's more of a comment on them than me. But, if you've been through it, you've been through it. And so it's not particularly enjoyable most of the time. And then my wife and I were just driving around in Panama City one day, and we saw this sign, like a billboard. And it was for, like, essentially like a collecticon, but a local one, a little one, a one-day little event that was going to be right in Panama City. And they were looking for vendors and advertising the show. And so I said, I've got enough stuff to make this happen. I should just do it. And so I did. I reached out. I booked a table. I ordered, the handful of things off whatever Amazon that you order when you're kind of about to do your first show. I got a tablecloth. I got, what else did I get? I had to buy shelving. I had to get a case for my display. So I got those handful of sort of like really basic things. And then the other thing that I did is I spent some of my money that I had accumulated from marketplace deals, a significant chunk of it. I bought a bunch of sealed Japanese boxes from one of the people online that are the U.S. sellers. And I got a big order at the time, a really big order for me. It was like the biggest purchase I'd made. It was like $1,500 worth of Japanese sealed boxes. And so I got my binders already. I did all the pricing. I got ready for the show, and the show went really well. I want to say there was probably 30-ish vendors, 30 to 40 maybe. However, a bunch of them were like comic book sellers and, Funko Pop sellers and people that were doing like art and people that were doing 3D printing things. And so it was like a really mixed bag of people. And then also there was probably only four other vendors that were selling Pokemon cards or like trading cards in general. And that show just went like unbelievably well for me. For my first show, for having the inventory I had, I probably had like 5K in inventory when I did my first show. I had one of those cheap Amazon display cases where it has the shelves on it and you're supposed to hang it on your wall. And so it's like, those are, if you've been vending for a while, you're like, oh, that's like, those are really not ideal. But it's also the one that like almost everybody starts with, or a lot of people do anyway. So it went really well. It was a ton of fun too. I had a really good time doing it. It was super busy. My average transaction was probably $10-ish, but it just went really well. I was busy all day. I had a lot of fun doing it. It brought me back to my days of like bartending, and talked about it a little bit before, but I used to drink heavy between the ages of 15 and 25. I stopped when I was 25. I was in the industry from the age of 21 to 25, bartending and managing liquor stores. And bartending was always just a blast. It's such a fun job. And I always enjoyed it. And one of the worst part about quitting drinking for me was not being in the industry, because that was the career path that I was on at that point. And I had a lot of fun doing it. So I kind of lost that, because you don't get that so much in construction. You don't get to put on a show and put on your salesman face and interact with your customers and have fun that much. It doesn't really, there's very few jobs where you get to do that. Bartending's one. And when I started vending, I said, oh, this is like that. It's fun. You get to interact with your customers, chat them up, make your sales pitch, you know, and it's playful. It's not like being a car salesman where it's like, you've got sales goals and you better compete for a top spot at the dealership or else. It's not like that at all. It's just fun. And, because the stakes are really low most of the time, you know, even on high value deals, I would say, you know, most people that are doing these deals, it's like, you shouldn't be doing too many deals where it's like, if something goes wrong, you're screwed on your basic expenses or something, you know. It doesn't happen that much. So it's just like much more lightweight as far as consequences. So everybody gets to approach it as kind of a less stressful environment. So anyway, that show went really well, and so I ended up booking shows out of town. We went all the way to Tampa for shows, and we went to Orlando area for shows, and I want to say 5 more shows or so down in Florida. And pretty much without exception, they all went really well. You know, there were a couple, they were all 2-day shows. We'd have to drive down to them. We'd stay 2 nights, Friday night, Saturday night, and we'd do Saturday, Sunday shows. They all went well. They were all fun. And yeah, it was just like, oh, I want to do this going forward. You know, at that point, we didn't know that we were moving back to Massachusetts, but we decided, oh, we should do this, or at least integrate this into our possibilities of ways to make money, because the shows were going well. And, you know, I was very quickly growing my inventory and growing my sales channels, growing my connections in the area. You know, if we had ended up staying in Florida, I don't know if we would have stayed in Panama City, because the Panhandle is a different part of Florida than the rest. Let's put it that way. But there was a lot of opportunity down there to vend. Something else that I did during that time period was I went to Collecticon in Atlanta, and I saw the potential for what vending could be, from a different perspective than the vendor POVs give you, because they give you one locked visual of a show. But walking around one of these big, busy, crazy shows, different experience. So I think I'm going to have to break this video into 2 separate parts. Maybe I'll film the second part tomorrow. But that's kind of like the backstory of how I got into vending, and, you know, my experience in Florida vending. Florida was great for vending. The shows there, to be honest, are easier to get into. There are less vendors competing for spaces than there are in New England. New England, it's really hard to get into any of the bigger shows, any of the more popular ones, which makes more sense. It's more population dense. So, not surprising particularly. But yeah, eventually, I came back up to New England during the early summer, and I had work to do on our house in Massachusetts to get it ready to sell. And so I came up here for a month and got that work done and finished our house. I went to one show while I was up in Mass. I went to a show at the DCU Center in Springfield, and it was good. I did a little bit of marketplace selling and stuff while I was in town, but not a ton. It was different vibes than it was down in Florida. Florida marketplace actually is, at least at the time, it was easy to sell on marketplace down in Florida. And I didn't have the same exact amount of success in Mass, but whatever. So I came back to Florida once I got all that stuff wrapped up. And I was kind of doing still doing vending twice a month pretty much. And doing some woodworking projects and things like that, just stuff to make money on the side. And I was door dashing as my other means of making some money on the side. And I got into a car accident. My wife and I were already kind of like teetering back and forth. Are we going to stay here? Is this the place for us? Should we sell our house in Mass? What are we going to do? Because we weren't making nearly the money down in Florida that we were back up in Mass. And so we really weren't sure what we were going to do. And when I got in that car accident, door dashing, I just made up my mind like instantly. I was like, I don't know. I'm getting a lot of signs down. There was other stuff going on, but I'm not going to go into all of that. But, it just wasn't the right fit for us, I don't think. And we missed our friends and family. We had no support network or anything like that down there. So we were like very unsure. And when I got in the car accident, door dashing, barely making okay money door dashing, making way more money from selling cards and doing that sort of stuff. But it was like I wasn't able to control the demand of that. So it was like intermittent making money. But when I got in that accident, I just made up my mind. I was like, I'm ready to go back and get my life started again or whatever. So we made it happen. And I think we came back middle of July, and immediately things just turned around and got easier, and money came easier, and we felt more at home. And I think that's where I'm going to wrap up the video for today. And tomorrow I'm going to do another video and get into the vending journey since returning to New England, and talk about that a little bit, talk about the growth overall that I've had in the vending space. And then I guess since we're closing out the year shortly here, I'll talk a little bit about what my goals are for next year and what I see as my hopeful trajectory for the future in the hobby, in the vending space, all that stuff. So it was a long one. If you guys stuck around for the whole thing, I really appreciate it. And I hope to see some of you guys at the Truck Bar in Berlin, Connecticut this weekend, and the Pokemon Outlet next weekend in Lee, Mass. Thanks for watching. Later.